Books, eh? Well, welcome to another Atypling Philosopher video. Today I'm going to talk to you about the books I've written because it's near Christmas and I'd love you to add some of them to your Christmas wish list. Or buy them for other people because, do you know what? They need them or something. I could do this in chronological order, but I'm not going to. I'm going to do it in random order because I'm a bit random. And I'm going to start with this book, which is actually my latest book. And the reason I'm going to start with this book is because actually it forms a foundation, or it sets out the foundation of my entire worldview. So it's called Why I Am Atheist and Not a Theist, How to Do Knowledge, Meaning and Morality in a Godless World. And the idea, like I said on a previous video, is that I set out talking about my ontology, which is the existence of everything in the world, what's everything made of, including ideas and concepts, abstract ideas, which includes things like morality. I deal with that down here. So what's the ontology of everything? And then I talk about epistemology. How do we find out knowledge given the ontology? And I talk about natural theology, you know, whether or not God exists, given epistemology and ontology. And then I talk about teleology, sort of meaning and purpose, given as to whether God exists or not, and blah, blah, blah. And then I'll talk about morality up at the top. So the sections are ordered in a way that builds up my entire worldview until I get to an atheistic morality at the top, based on everything that's below it. And it's a real, it's a really solid, I think, account of atheism, but also atheistic morality, but also knowledge and epistemology and meaning. So it's a philosophical book aimed at the intelligent layman. It's not totally popular. You know, there is some philosophy in the book, but it's an accessible philosophical book. I mean, that was the entire point. That's kind of my remit, really, in all my writing, is to make philosophy accessible. So that's an interesting book to start with, or probably the correct book to start with, because really that sets out why I believe what I believe, and why you should too. So that's Why I Am Atheist and Not a Theist. And given that, you know, I suppose next book to go to might be the Little Book of Unholy Questions, which is this is definitely a sort of popular level question, a book of 501 questions I asked God, and she's not got back to me, which is annoying because they're pretty good questions. That has a bunch of irreverent questions and poignant questions and thoughtful questions and philosophical questions and funny questions and all sorts of different ideas float around this book. And some of the questions that are irreverent actually have a hidden depth to them that means you end up unpicking the question going, oh, there's quite a lot involved in this, and there you go. And all the questions are split up into sections that cover a whole range of topics, you know, Jesus, resurrection, heaven, hell, Satan, problem of evil, evolution, science, prayer, kids, children, rites, rituals and denominations, soul, meaning of life, morality, free will, humour, and all sorts. So I like that book. It's just a nice, easy read, but interesting. So a Little Book of Unholy Questions, and from that came a later book that was originally only on. This is a proof copy, which is why it's got that thing across it. This was originally only an ebook, and then I was asked to bring it out in paperback, and I brought it out in paperback. This is an anthology of previous writing from my blog and a few original bits, but mainly previous writing, which is why it's quite a reasonably priced book, because you can hunt around and find that writing. But I thought I'd put it all into one place, and this is the problem with God in scare quotes, because like I've explained before, you can redefine God however you like if you meet a criticism, and then move it around, and then when that criticism goes away, you just revert back to believing that kind of God. And it's, many theists just have this movable idea of what God is. So here I attack God, but then I say, okay, the kind of God I'm attacking is a God of classical theism, the omni-God, omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolence, all powerful, all loving, all knowing and all loving. So I attack that kind of God with loads of chapters covering an awful lot of stuff. There's sorts of areas I cover in this, but maybe with a little bit more detail in certain areas. So that's the problem with God. And in fact, I've taken these kind of ideas, and I do a public talk called God on Trial, where I take a bunch of those arguments and apply them to God. And yeah, there you go. So next book I'm going to go through is Beyond an Absence of Faith. So this was a project I did with Tristan Vick, and we compiled a bunch of deconversion accounts from people actually, ranging across the world, not just from Christianity as well. There's a few from Islam and other traditions. So this is just a collection of interesting stories of deconverting from organized religion and the challenges that come with that, particularly in America. Some of it, well, actually not necessarily America. There are Islam as well, where the challenges are huge. You have social and familial challenges of leaving a religion, being ostracized from your family, from your friends, from your community, but also, some people can be in danger from doing so. Anyway, this is a set of deconversion accounts, which I know that people read this and get a lot out of it because they've gone through the same sort of thing, or are about to go through the same sort of thing. And for others are just interested. Like I was never in a position where I had to formally deconvert in any way. It's kind of by osmosis just drifted away from a nominal Church of England Christianity. So I find accounts from, say, for example, Bible Belt America, deconversion accounts from there, it's incredibly interesting because they're so alien to me. So that's that book. This book is called Not Seeing God. This is a book I edited, Atheism in the 21st Century, just covering a load of chapters from writers from the Pantheon non-religious network. So I edited and compiled and edited this anthology. There are so many great writers at Pantheon non-religious, where I write presently, that I wanted to distill that into a volume that looked at all these different areas of expertise that people have. So the first part sets out deconstructing God. So when we don't see God, first of all, for many of us, it's about, deconstructing what our notion of God is. So there are philosophical arguments against the existence of God, and they fall into that deconstructing God chapter or section, part 1. So loads of so for example, my opening chapter, Not Seeing Omni-God, and then next chapter is Not Seeing God through Psychology and Neuroscience, using common sense to not see God, not seeing God but seeing folklore in the Bible, not finding God in ethics, not seeing God in the Bible as ridiculous, seeing God in the Bible as ridiculous, and rationally not seeing God, being born again. So those are the opening chapters in the first section. Then the section 2 is reflecting on godlessness in modern society. So it's like, okay, now we don't see God. How does that look in society? So these are chapters to do with different ideas of God. Science and medicine, not seeing God in your prayers. Thank you very much. Not seeing God through celebrations in life. So that's like from someone who's a humanist celebrant. It started with yoga, unraveling the threads towards not seeing God. So this is someone's deconversion account, and it started with their idea that yoga was a sin. Not seeing God at the movies, humanism and witchcraft, and so on and so forth. So loads of ideas, and then not seeing God in the military, not seeing atheists in Congress. So some really, really varied chapters there, looking at the intersection of atheism and society. And then the third section is looking forward to a future in a godless world. So okay, where do we go from here? You know, how to prepare for not seeing God in life's meaning and purpose, not seeing God when raising your kids, not seeing God in religion, and what comes after not seeing God. So it's just a really varied and interesting book that has a bit of everything to do with atheism. I think, you know, I think it's a really great anthology, this, and it's one that I've not really sung the praises of enough. So it just sits there in the background, but actually it's a really, really valuable book, this. Really good. Not Seeing God, Atheism in the 21st Century. And another anthology, an earlier one I did when I used, so that was with the Pantheon non-religious network that I write for presently. And this is an anthology of writers from the Skeptic Inc. network with whom I wrote before I moved over to Patheos. And very similar, this is a collection of essays from writers there, talking about a variety of topics, 13 reasons to doubt. So advocating skepticism in different areas. So the sorts of chapters we have here, why you can't trust your brain, skepticism in an age of ideology by Russell Blackford, a brief history of doubt, so looking at the great skeptics from antiquity to the Renaissance, and then science, a mechanism for doubting, a source of reliability, and then I write one on free will in here. There's pseudo archaeology, and analysing Hume's on miracles. So loads of ideas concerning sort of skepticism. That's another great anthology of a variety of writers writing on a variety of topics. Really good. 13 Reasons to Doubt. All of these books are available on Amazon Kindle, Kobo and Nook. Some of them on iTunes as well. I need to sort out the iTunes a little bit more. Okay, next book is Did God Create the Universe from Nothing? I wrote my thesis on the clown cosmological argument, and it was so damn good I wanted to turn it into a book. No, I used to be really, really into the clown cosmological argument, kind of obsessed with it, and this is a manifestation of that. So this is countering William Lane Craig's clown cosmological argument. So I particularly take aim at William Lane Craig in this book, and his iteration of the clown cosmological argument. So this book is a philosophical book looking at just the three lines of the argument, and how the argument doesn't do for theists what they think it does do, and it's just I really enjoyed writing this because it's philosophy, but it's right up my alley of the areas of philosophy that really float my boat. And the whole book is literally on these three lines. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause for its existence. So, therefore God is the inference. And yeah, so I talk about cosmology in here, and I have a couple of contributors who add to that. So counter-apologist talks about the pseudo, or the cherry picking of the science that William Lane Craig uses to advocate for his Kalam. I then have a mathematician, Dr. James East, talking about infinity with regard to how it interacts with the universe, or the ramifications certain beliefs in infinity might have, with beliefs in whether the universe is infinite going backwards, and so on and so forth. Craig has issues with infinity, and Dr. East takes aim at Craig's claims. So yeah, if the clown cosmological argument is your bag, this is your book. Did God create the universe from nothing? And you know, it's a book that William Lane Craig and others not William Lane Craig, Richard Carrier, and others on the Amazon reviews have said basically this is the go-to book on the Quran. You know, so that's really cool. Really happy with that. My first book, which I'm in desperate need of rewriting, I think I can do a better job you know, as you like anything in life, the more you do it, the better you become. So the more I write, the better a writer I become. So this book I need to rewrite because I think I can do a better job of the writing. The points I'm making it are still completely hold, and but I can add to them, and I can probably do it more concisely. But I was really happy with this book. I mean, this is now what, 11 years old or something. So, you know, a free will, an investigation into whether we have free will, or whether I was always going to write this book. So a bit of a tongue-in-cheek title there, but this is basically an analysis of the free will debate, where I conclude for hard determinism. So I'm a determinist, although I'm also a compatibilist. It just depends how you define free will, but that's a whole other debate. Anyway, that's my first book. Check it out if you want, but I am going to rewrite that. My plan is to do that this next year, 2022. Coming on to Filling the Void. So this is a book of poetry. I've got loads of tabs there because I've also done a bunch of readings from this book together with music. There's a couple of public talks I've done together with some friends in a band who've done some songs alongside as we celebrate humanism and atheism. So this is Filling the Void, a selection of humanist and atheist poetry. So I compiled this. I've got a few poems in there myself, but I'm no particular poet, but I have thrown a few in there. One I'm particularly proud of, which is a performance poem that I'd like to be read out at my funeral. You can find it on the YouTube channel, Legacy of Life. So yeah, if you like your poetry, this is a variety of different poems that advocate for humanism, atheism, agnosticism, science, all sorts, split into different sections. But yeah, poetry, it's there for you, and something different. Please check that out. Love it. I'm going to say I love all these books, obviously. Now we get on to my two books, and these are the last two in the non-fiction section. These are in my trilogy of books, critical examination books. I say trilogy, I've only written two. I'm presently in the middle of writing a third. First one is the Nativity, a critical examination. This is nice and short because actually there's only two Gospels that talk about the Nativity. This book looks at the Gospels of Matthew and Luke and completely takes to pieces the nativity accounts of Jesus there within. It's a really concise book, but it packs a real punch. There's an awful lot of content in here, looking at every single angle of the nativity and every single claim, and showing that it's inherently problematic trying to marry those two accounts. They're just irreconcilable, but they're both mythological in nature, and I present the reasons why that is the case. And the idea that started with this book is, right, if you take away the nativity, what are you left with? What are the so if this is the main area of Jesus' life that intersects with known history, what does that say about the rest of his life that doesn't? Like, if we can cast serious doubts on these historical, so-called historical claims, then what can we say about the claims of his ministry in the middle that don't really intersect with known history? How can we say that they're true? So that was what I was starting with that book, and I carried that on with the resurrection, because also at the end of his life, the claims of Jesus intersect with known history. Pontius Pilate, death and burial, rituals and customs for Jews and in the Roman Empire. You know, all these sorts of claims that have some kind of historical verifiability. So this is a much bigger book because there's a lot more in the Gospels on the resurrection, all 4 Gospel accounts, and much longer accounts. So therefore there's much more to critique. And so the resurrection, a critical examination of the Easter story, is a continuation of that theme of saying, right, we've taken apart these accounts. What now? Because actually, if you say, well, the Nativity almost certainly didn't happen, the resurrection almost certainly didn't happen, what are you left with? How can you remain being a Christian? Certainly rationally so. And I'm writing the 3rd in the trilogy of those books, which is the Exodus, a critical examination, and the Moses story. And that then takes away the kind of Hebrew Bible foundation upon which Jesus is built. So if he comes to fulfill every jot and tittle of the law, how can he do that if actually the Mosaic law is ahistorical? What if the Exodus didn't happen? You know, if Jesus is the new Moses and Moses is a mythological person, then what does it mean to say that Jesus is the new Moses? So on and so forth. So anyway, that's that. So those are all my non-fiction books, and I really do urge you to support my work by grabbing those on, you know, as ebook or paperback book, because, you know, I've had to retire from teaching with ill health due to multiple sclerosis, and teaching was just too much for me, and so writing is what's keeping me afloat. But it's a real hard slog for people to, you know, buy books. There you go. Anyway, fiction. I have my fiction books that I've spoken in another video about, the Survival of the Fittest series, Metamorphosis, and which is this first one, and Adaptation, which is the second one, and I'm writing a 3rd one in that series. So that's the Survival of the Fittest series. It's a horror, pandemic horror series that is about a whole load of different characters from different characters' point of view, and they get drawn inexorably together, dealing with a pandemic where sort of people die or come back to life and eat other people's faces off, and it's a way of delivering, it's a vehicle to deliver loads of philosophy in a kind of like fictional context, and I love it. I think it's great. People who have read it really love it, it's exciting, but hopefully also well written. It's not just schlock with it's also got stuff to think about. And penultimately, my Curse of the Maya book, which is written for sort of 9 to 15 year olds, 9 to 13 year olds. It is it's now been picked up and down the country as a core text to be used in English and history, and that's great because, you know, we wrote that book with a load of things in mind. So it was quite cynically written in a sense that we wrote it because there were gaps in the English curriculum and gaps in the history crossover to English curriculum, and so myself and another teacher decided to write a book that really filled a lot of holes, but that we knew would also be a good book because we knew how to write and we knew what kids loved in their fiction. So that came along, and some of the reviews on Amazon have been amazing. Stuff like, I've never heard my children groan when I finish reading this. They just want me to continue reading. And, you know, when teachers say that, as the reviews for the book are phenomenal on Amazon. You just know that you've done a good job. You know, when the people who are teaching English are saying, this is the book I want to deliver my English or my history or my P4C, which is philosophy for children. So there's elements of philosophy in that as well. Then, you know, they're saying awesome, then brilliant, really happy. Finally, the family book of Word of the Day for a year, every year, forever. And this is just simply a bit of a romp around different words in the English language and giving you a bit of etymology, a bit of the history of those words, and contextualizing them, you know, putting them in examples, just so every day you can have an interesting word to add to your vocabulary, because words are cool, despite what anti-wordists say. It's not a thing. So those are my books. Here. Yeah, there they are. Loads of them. Please help out. That would be amazing. Anyway, if you made it this far, you're quite amazing. You're quite the trooper, because I've just spent 20 minutes talking about my books and no one really wants to hear that. Anyway, thanks for all your supports. Have a really Merry Christmas. And as an atheist, I love Christmas. It's awesome. And please continue with your support. It's really appreciated.